when we wake up to the fact that our worth is not connected to being good, perfect, and productive. Oh boy, it's it can be get very confronting.
Hello there and welcome to Wild and Finally Fucking Free, where midlife isn't a time of crisis but a time of metamorphosis. Just like the journey through puberty and pregnancy to postpartum, our midlife transition is also a powerful portal of rebirth. The wise woman inside of us is calling, inviting us to slow down, to take stock, to speak our truth, to burn away all that no longer serves us, ready to step forward into our next phase of life. I'm your host, Kylie Patchett, storyteller and midlife self-care coach, and together we'll unearth the real and raw stories of women who are right in the messy, magical middle, or have come out the other side, and the healers who help all of us through these crossroads of change. I hope that as you listen to these tales of breaking the ties that bind, shedding skins, and courageously chasing midlife dreams, that you too will answer the wise woman's invitation and set yourself wild and finally fucking free. Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. I have the beautiful Robyn Patton in the house. How are you?
Yes, Kylie, I'm thrilled. Thank you for having me.
I am honored, and I feel like this is, as we were saying before we started recording, it's like a rebel meets rebel and passionate woman and midlife advocate, and I'm like, it's like another one of my people. So I'm excited to have this conversation. And I was just saying to you, I came across you because I saw the TEDx that you just done. But before we dive into that, let's introduce your lovely self in whatever way you are called to today to our audience, if they don't already know you.
Yes, the $1 million question.
I know, right?
Who are we? Who am I? So I am a woman in my mid-50s on a mission to support other women in midlife.
Yes.
To find the freedom, basically. Freedom is such a big value of mine. The freedom to whatever. So towards something or away from something. So for many of us, I've worked out over the 12 years I've been doing this, Kylie, we're either working towards freedom or we want freedom from something. And I've just found in all this time, as no doubt you have as well, midlife is an opportunity.
Oh, God, yeah. And one that we can either say yes and dive into, or one that we can go, too scary.
That's exactly right. And the beautiful thing about midlife is that it's over, I'm not very fixed on my definition of midlife. I was speaking to a group of women on the couple of weekends ago and just saying I have a very light touch around this, even the phrase midlife. If you feel connected to that word, then great. But if it doesn't resonate with you, and yet maybe you're a woman over 40, then let's just go with welcome to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Entered a particular stage of life, which happens to be named by some people, doesn't have to be by you, as midlife. And, to be honest, I worked with a woman last year, all year, who is 67 and was embracing every single concept in our work together that, you and I might think would be, more applicable to someone 10, 15, 20 years younger than her. It's a mindset. It's not a fixed age.
Yeah, gotcha. And as soon as you say, I love words, like that words are my jam, but as soon as you give a label, you also are then inviting all the stereotype unconscious bias shit that's underneath the surface about that. And so, great, identify as midlife if that speaks to your values like freedom. And I feel like you and I, rebel, freedom, bike lover, it's like samesies, same sort of person. But yeah, when you say a word that then brings up anything that is maybe not a positive connection, then we've got a problem, right? And like I said about, reading bios before we started recording, it's like, why do I need to put my box, why do I need to put the me box in another box that says midlife? To me, that doesn't make any sense. Anyway, that's just my jam. How in your own journey were you called to work with women in midlife? And I really want to talk about, because you do a lot of, I love your content, all your reels and everything on Instagram. I'm very often doing my relaxation scroll in the evening going, oh, what's you got to say now? And you talk a lot about people pleasing and boundaries and things. So I really want to go down that track. Yeah. She's like, how long have you got, people? But how did you end up working in this kind of, the midlife, even though we've just talked about not labeling it midlife, but what called you to do this work in the world?
Yeah. I started my professional life, so from a professional perspective, as a social worker and counsellor. So from very early on, the feminist heartbeat was very strong within my bones, the social justice. So in my very early days, I was working in some fairly deep and difficult for some people to talk about areas of social rape and sexual assault, family violence, and some other areas that, weren't as deep, but still had a lot of resonance for me. And so from early on, women and our collective struggles or our collective understanding of what it's like to exist in this world has been a massive passion of mine. Then when I hit my early 40s, I was in a marriage that was on the outside perfectly fine. It ticked all conventional boxes: children, home, stability, and yet being an incredibly loyal person, if you had have asked me, what was the marriage like? What was the relationship like? I wouldn't have told you the truth because I couldn't tell the truth to myself, which was, it was not fulfilling.
Yeah.
Around the same time, I'd also had a history of dieting since I was 13. So a very long time. I've been dieting on and off for decades. And what I noticed both within myself and the women I was working with was that there was rumblings starting to happen as we were coming out of our 30s and going into our 40s around questioning, just the questioning phase. There was some action happening, but there was more questioning. And that was certainly my experience. To go on the path, Kylie, of leaving a marriage that doesn't tick the boxes for why we would normally walk away from a long-term relationship where there are kids involved was incredibly difficult and liberating at the same time. It was not easy and it took a long period of time.
Yeah.
And yet it was what my heart, my soul, my being was kept, that was the alignment that I kept being pulled towards. Yeah. And the same thing happened with dieting. Around that time, I was like, the restriction and the lack of freedom when my mind was completely consumed with good food, bad food, the scales, was I dieting, what not dieting, was it took up so much space. To be honest, I didn't know any differently. So I read a couple of books, I did a couple of courses, I looked a bit further into this, and I literally had an aha moment where I released dieting. The freedom that came from that, I still remember to this day. I was walking along a path, I jumped in the air, and I said out aloud, I am free, I'm free. I know it sounds very cliche, I know it sounds very Disneyland, but it was my moment of fully embodying, this is what freedom feels like, from something that has had real estate in my head since I was an early teenager. I know I'm not the only one. And the same
God, no.
I married, the same with the choices I was making in other areas of my life. So it came together in my early 40s. And once the genie is out of the bottle, Kylie.
Hey gorgeous, we interrupt this gold for a delicious invitation. If your whole body has been whispering more lately, more voice, more truth, more satisfaction, more clients of the soulmate variety, more cash, more you, then this invitation is for you. Potent, My sister mind is officially open. This is my high touch, holy fuck, I'm ready sister mind for rebels in good girl clothing who are done outsourcing their power and diluting their magic to fit into someone else's business formula. If you have been craving a space where your strategy, your voice, and your energy all get to be offered, honored, refined, and amplified, this is it. Inside of Potent, you'll get my eyes on your business every single week, copy mentoring, and that is for brand copy and content storytelling that turns your truth into client catnip, energetic recalibration that helps you unhook old, learned limitation patterns, keeping you quiet, not being seen, not being heard, real-time, high-touch, one-on-one coaching that actually sees the bigness of your vision, and the kind of sisterhood that does not flinch when you show up in your full, messy, brilliant, phoenix rising from the ashes glory. This isn't surface level support. It's deep, potent, paradigm shifting work that changes who you are as a woman in business and a woman in life. We start in August. Early open access is open right now. For the month of June 2025, inside of this early access open doors period, you will receive juicy bonuses, extended payment plans, and access immediately to my entire library of storytelling gold. You'll find all the juicy details at kyliePatchett.com/potent. And we fill spaces, and there's only 10 of them, and more than likely only 5 by the time you listen to this, because by that time I will have offered them to the existing cohort, the beautiful original OG circle. We do actually take applications on a first come, first served basis. So come and apply, and let's get back to the magic of the episode. Yeah, hard to put back in, isn't it? Undeniable, Jeannie, damn you.
And that's where, for me, the rebel, you know, my business is called Midlife Rebel. That's where the rebel comes into the story. It's not about giving the middle finger or saying F you, although it can include those things.
Yeah.
The rebel is an energy. And it's, you know, when you look up the definition of rebel, all it is someone who questions the status quo.
Yes.
That's all it is. So what status quo might you be questioning?
And what status quo are you settling for, right? Because that's really what you're talking about, is like
exactly.
A woman's experience is just, I have to fit into a particular size, and therefore I must diet to be appropriate and okay for your eyeballs to rest on. God forbid I take up space. But also it sounds like you're saying, yeah, I did have out on the outside, looked okay, marriage. But to me, it wasn't freedom. It wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't juiced up. It wasn't whatever language we want to use. So much to say. So much to say about. I actually just spent hours, and I'm still going. I'm transferring a whole heap of photos from one storage system to another. So as a result, I'm looking at photos from years and years and years. And do you know how many freaking photos there are that are before photos, during photos, and after the latest diet attempt? And I'm like, oh my God, if I could reach back in time to myself. And same as you, like from early teenage all the way up until probably like 3 years ago, I'm only really talking. Same thing, so much headspace. And I feel like it was like the secondary gain, if you want to talk coaching speak of that, is if you've so consumed with something that you've bought into, it also stops you looking at all the things that actually make you uncomfortable or that help you listen to your heart and soul calling you to do these things, right? Yeah. So it's like this great distracting, you know. Cool. All right.
Distracting, and that, I mean, I then start thinking about what a great way to control women.
Oh, 100%. Well, who benefits from this? The machine.
Yeah, follow the money. Yeah.
Exactly.
And in my early days of my coaching, so this is going back 12 years.
Yeah.
I had a real passion, because one of my accesses to this freedom was through intuitive eating.
Yes.
And like so many of us find, when we are passionate and committed and find something that just makes so much sense to us, we internalize, metabolize, create that embodiment within ourselves, and then there's often a desire to go out and share it. So in the first couple of years of my coaching practice, it was about intuition, listening to your body, connecting with your body. My early business was called Intuitive Nourishment, and it was wonderful. And then I found, because of my counseling background as a former counselor, everything was welcome in the space. I have a big capacity to hold a lot within the space because of the experience and the training and the work and everything. And also that longing to allow women to feel like everything is welcome. And so that does open up conversations around grief and loss, around relationships and fulfillment, around identity. So much of my work is around identity, and that then leads into communication and boundary and people pleasing and over functioning and how we're seen in the world, what works and what doesn't.
And how we're taught, as you're talking, what's coming to the surface for me is like, how was I taught when I was younger in forming my relationship with the world and myself and all of those things? How was I taught I needed to perform to receive love and approval? And then midlife arrives and it's like this, the hormone of accommodation in estrogen starts falling and you start going, what the actual fuck have I been doing to myself? Can you tell us a little bit more about that journey when someone has that realization that, hang on, the way that I'm behaving is not aligning to the way that I want to feel and experience the world? Because that's really hard. Like, that's ingrained in us, right? Like these roles and ways of being, and this is how things work. Can you share some gold about that? Because I've just been having a conversation with someone about one of these, like the boundary issue thing, and this is where I really wanted to pull out from your brain, because I know this is such a common problem.
Oh, I get teary even you asking the question. I just, what first opens up for me is my heart. I feel so much compassion for all of us on it's a cliche alert ahead, but the journey of discovering who we are when we realize and wake up to the fact that our value and worth isn't attached to being good, perfect, and productive.
Can we just say that again?
Oh,
let's just repeat it for the people at the back, including myself, because my heart's doing
my heart, your heart. I think this is why I stay in the conversation, is because it keeps it alive on all levels, for myself, for the women I care about, for my adult daughters, for my clients. I whether I speak into the void in social media or not, the urge is still there, because every time I feel it, my heart just opens up to all of us. When we wake up to the fact that our worth is not connected to being good, perfect, and productive. Oh boy, it's it can get very confronting. It's in this ideal world, it's an awakening, and the bluebirds sing, and the
unicorns are dancing over the rainbows, and it's all
it's incredibly painful, Kylie. I find that, generally speaking, this is not a comfortable space to step into. It's the courageous, and it requires courage to step into that place of discomfort, because most of us have been conditioned, because we're human beings, to stay safe and to belong. How do we do that? Through how we've been conditioned and shown to belong and to fit in.
in our families, in our societies, in our mothering, in our so many different levels. I really appreciate what you're saying about this is not unicorns and rainbows, because my sense of rage at the beginning of like realizing, having some awareness, and therefore having then more conscious choice about, what are these beliefs? How do I think that I need to be in the world to feel, to be okay, in inverted commas, rage, because I'm like, I don't even know who I am without this thing. So I have lived, for me, I'm 49. So for 49 years playing out this conditioned expectation, and it's so ingrained in the way I am in the world that I actually don't even know who I am without it. And then I'm like, it's the same feeling that I get when I look at photos of me, back before I had my kids. And it's literally a before photo of me in my underwear looking desperately unhappy. And I'm just like, how much of my life and energy and emotional bandwidth has gone into that bullshit story that I had to be a particular size and shape to be okay in the world.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like. I feel like rage and then grief, probably some denial at the beginning. Let's face it. So when things get messy, what do you, when you're working with a client that has these realizations? Actually, I want to go back a track. When people have these realizations, is it as a direct result of something feeling like a stuck point or a source of lack of fulfillment or something? Like, is it like the big, I don't know, midlife collision that causes people to question things? Or do you think that it is, and I mean, I personally do think that it's part of the natural questioning of this time of life, where it's like, hang on a minute, hang on a minute. And then, those deeper questions come. Do you find, though, that it's like, is it the collision or is it the questioning, or is it both? Probably?
So it's a good question, and I wish there was an easy answer to it. In very broad terms, Kylie, the way I experience it in the women I meet is there's a type of women who are on a quest, and there's a curiosity to know ourselves at a deeper level. And so, consuming books, self-help books, and listening to webinars and listening to podcasts is just fills them up. There's a juiciness to it. There's a curiosity. There's a drive. And yet in that particular group of women, I noticed there can also be a stuckness, because I saw it in myself. Because when the rubber hits the road, you've got a head full of really good ideas, but when you turn around in your everyday life, it all falls to pieces. So there's a lot of self-judgment around, I know what I should be doing, and yet I get into this situation with my partner, or someone's shaking the tin in front of Coles asking for money, and I collapse in on myself, and I'm a puddle of a mess. Or the boss says something to me, and I feel I go back to being a little girl. So that's one type, which I have a lot of compassion for, because I see myself, and I saw myself in that time.
Yeah. And
then there's the other type whom I once again, I can feel my heart. and that's women who the tap has come from outside. There's either been illness that they already know it's stress related. There's so much pressure. There's something going on that's the body is saying,
I can't keep going.
Can't keep doing this. Or a marriage starts to disintegrate, relationship starts to deteriorate. There's a death. There's a tragedy in the workplace. There's something that's a catalyst that feels outside of them, and it all comes whooshing up in their face. A parent dies, something happens.
The big shifts.
Big shifts.
Also the big shits. That's what I heard when I said that. Yeah, the fork in the road type of things. That's why I'm interested, because I feel like I also identify as the seeker, but also someone who still feel so connected to certain identities that, but you're right. What happens is all this knowledge doesn't get ground into reality. And then when you see yourself doing the same thing again, there's like this self-judgment, flagellation, why. And I like the thing that I used to tell myself all the time about one particular thing that's coming to my mind is I'm an intelligent person. I can see this pattern, but I continue to play it out. And it's like, hello, this is not your fault. You've been trained to do this. Conditioned. And also, as you asked before, you know, who benefits from that? Well, follow the money, follow the patriarchy, follow any system of oppression that says that, we need to keep small and in our place to be okay in the system. So I identify with the first group. And I think I'm more and more clear on the fact that by choosing to play out, well, not choosing because that still sounds judgmental, but continuing to play out the pattern just means that all I'm heading for is to be in the second group. Like there's a breaking point, if I don't make it for myself and consciously choose life or my health or whatever it is will choose for me.
Correct.
And that's really confronting, and still we can stay stuck. So when you talk to people about these patterns, like how do you describe the conditioning in terms of how we are? Because you mentioned like the fear of, not belonging, not feeling accepted and loved, not like they all come down to those root fears of like, I'm not good enough, I don't belong, I'm not loved, I'm not acceptable, all of those things. What's your language around that though? When you talk about how we learn these things, how do you actually describe it to clients? Because I feel like one of the amazing things about these conversations is that we get different language that sometimes wakes us up to things differently to what we've heard it before.
I love thinking about archetypes. So the rebel is the clear one. The rebel is an archetype. And we can create the rebel however we want it to be. Now it's very different to the archetype from adolescence that was potentially chaotic and destructive. This archetype is an access to authenticity. So that's one. The other three that I talk about that I see in varying degrees in most of us, it's just there might be one that is more dominant than the other, are another three archetypes, and that's the good girl, the little girl, and the mean girl.
Okay. Tell us more.
So the good girl is very familiar to most of us. Because the good girl is the classic. And I would argue that we each have the good girl within us. So it's not about it's actually also not about getting rid of any of these archetypes that I'm about to speak of. It's just being aware of where they show up in your life. How do you manage them, and what do you need to feel safe in order to make a different choice or embrace this archetype? And so you are able to notice her in the first instance rather than the automatic conditioning. So the good girl is the people pleaser. She's the peacemaker, the obedient one. Smooths the waters, prioritizes other people.
My body is getting very tight in the shoulders, Robyn.
We breathe through it, Kylie. A client described it the other day as, and I've used this before myself years ago. I remember this phrase. You might have heard it: the burnt chop mum. So the good girl will sacrifice herself and martyr herself at the others.
Oh my goodness, that is very familiar. Yes. This
is deep work. So I can talk about it on a very superficial level, but when we actually start to unpack it in our work together, when I'm working with the client one-on-one, sometimes I don't even use this language because we don't need it. We can hear what's going. It's yes, you're absolutely right. Sometimes it's very useful to have the language as the starting point. But then how it shows up for each of us and how our nervous systems need to be regulated in order to take baby steps, because this is identity work, like I was saying earlier. The second one, so we've got good girl, Mean Girl, another classic. You catch yourself in a reflection walking past a mirror and you think, you look shit today. What, the critical voices in your head.
Yeah.
It's the mean girl will be the one stopping a compliment coming your way, deflecting praise, downplaying, because the voice in your head is saying, whatever your version of you're a piece of shit, you're fat, you're too this, you're too loud. Why did you say that? Everyone's looking at you. Who gives you?
You don't know what you're talking about.
You don't know what you're talking. That voice isn't ours. We weren't born with self-criticism and self-doubt. They're external. They come from external. And that's why I often reflect on my gratitude from my early years working in trauma, working in abuse, working with women in very different circumstances to my coaching practice today.
Yes.
Because it's given me a deep appreciation, understanding, and utilization of trauma, being a trauma-informed coach, basically.
And patterns, because that's really what you would have been shown in the most extreme versions.
That's exactly right.
Is understanding patterns of human behavior that are not, unhealthy, but feel like irresistible default ways of being because, of what, people have been through. That makes sense to me. It's interesting when you said the mean girl before. I did the good girl part of me did a little pat on the back and it's like, oh, I'm not a mean girl. I'm not nasty to other people. And now you're telling me that it's my internal voice. And I'm like, oh, fuck it. I've got that one too.
Yes. Yep. So once again, it's not necessarily finding out which one of these is yours. It's how she shows up in her life.
Yeah.
I've got this fun quiz on my website, which is which inner girl are you? And just fun questions to find out which of these 4 archetypes, so I include the rebel in that, more dominant. But let's leave room for all of us to recognize that there is parts of all this because of how we're socialized, conditioned, the patriarchy, lots of different forces at play. Now, the third one, Kylie, is I find this one personally interesting because I identified, and this was my work through my 40s, and that's the little girl. So the little girl within us hides from our greatness. The little girl is the one that she's got different flavors. She can show up in different ways, but she can be the unconscious part of you that's thinking, surely there's an adult in charge who can look after that for me. So it can be really simple things like, have you got a will up to date? Sometimes I'll do a very adult checklist with clients and we'll go through and just do a very basic, is your will up to date? How's your finances? Where's your financial literacy? These aren't things I can support or coach people around directly, but we can gently look at the awareness of where the little girl shows up is assuming or hoping that there's a big person who's going to be taking care of this for us. That's one aspect of the little girl. The other aspect is, like I touched on a moment ago, which is, are you fully stepping into your power and your greatness around what you're here to be? And that's not necessarily talking a big presence in the world. It is owning who you are. So once again, if somebody recognizes something within you and you deflect that, sure, that can be the mean girl deflecting it. You're not worth that. They don't know what they're talking about. You're actually shit. If they only knew how shit you were, they wouldn't say that. Or it could be the little girl hiding from not wanting to see this potential, this light within you that others can see.
Yeah. I am very drawn to asking you how, because the conversation we're having about archetypes feels like it's one flavor for the clients that you're now working with and could be a lot more intense and a lot more destructive in its playing out as a result of trauma. Would you agree with that?
I don't know if I fully understand the question, but
so what I mean is, when you're working in trauma and got learnt and became aware of the patterns that can play out as a result of trauma, and particularly generational, again and again and again, trauma cycles. Did you notice the way that those archetypes showed up were much more intense than the people that you're now working with as, and I'm making a massive assumption, average human beings? I mean, that's ridiculous. Now I'm realizing how stupid the question is. But yeah, I guess what I want to understand is, how did you notice, or what sort of impact does trauma have on how these patterns play out?
Oh,
the massive question, I know.
Yeah, it is a big question. Most of us, I come at this work, and so therefore this question, Kylie, leaving a lot of space that the definition of trauma can be quite broad.
Yes.
I don't need to, the good thing is now as a coach, I don't need to identify or diagnose.
Yeah.
I work with who and what is in front of me. Particularly what I've noticed, and maybe you have as well, people listening might have noticed over the last couple of years, we have collectively experienced a world that has become divisive, unsettled, chaotic, and we are feeling beings. So I start with the feeling body, and how do we make that safe, irrespective of whether somebody identifies as having trauma in their past or not.
Yeah.
I no longer use the words, well, I do, I suppose I do, but I'm going to make a statement that contradicts myself. I'm very careful around using language to describe people as more sensitive than others. I believe we're all sensitive. And it just shows differently for each of us. And, whether we internalize that sensitivity or we externalize it in, defensiveness and outward displays of protecting ourselves.
Yes.
We are feeling beings.
Yep.
And so, as you were saying earlier, in midlife, when sort of some of these bigger issues and even some of the granular issues of who am I and how I live my life, and this person I'm with, or this way I'm in the world, or the frustration or the resentment that I can't put my finger on, or the dissatisfaction I feel, that's my starting place. And then it's about, and this is really a person by person assessment, is how do we create safety for you so that we can do this work in a way that doesn't overwhelm you?
Yeah.
And that's irrespective of whether someone identifies as having trauma in
their background. Yeah, I see what you're saying. And so for someone who, because I do agree with you, all of us are feelers, I also think that sometimes not sometimes, there is a spectrum of people who are comfortable sensing through feelings, and people like me who have found that their body doesn't feel safe because of trauma and choose instead to, live through their head, and then all of a sudden get to midlife and it's like, oh, there's a lot of shit coming to the surface here, in a felt sense. So can you talk more about, if someone doesn't even know whether they're, how would you help someone understand how safety feels if they don't naturally understand what you're saying with that language?
Yeah, that's a beautiful $1 million question.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yes,
solve this and we will.
And that's where starting with, because the disconnect is real for many women, that disconnect, living in the head, and there's nothing that feels like it exists. And that was my experience. It was everything was in my head, Nothing was in my body because this was not a safe place to be. It had been ridiculed for being big and fat, and I felt like I took up too much space. And I had my own story, and listening to women over many now decades, for many of us, being in this body is not safe. So it's absolutely honoring that first. That's the first place, is honoring that, because women will often make themselves wrong for having that experience.
Correct.
So we find the way to take that off the table. And one of my biggest tools that I work with, Kylie, is compassionate curiosity. So those two words by themselves are important, but I always bring them together so that we start modeling straight away. It's not about judgments, and it's not about shoulds, and it's not about anything other
good
than
and bad.
That's exactly right. It's about passionate curiosity. So that's one of the very early tools that I teach.
Love that.
And then depending on the individual, it will then depend on how slowly we need to go around just connecting in that moment with breath. So oftentimes I will check in with someone in a moment as we're having a conversation, and I like spaciousness in my session. So for people who are working with me in packages, we have 90-minute sessions because I need spaciousness. I want to offer spaciousness around. We don't need to take the 90 minutes, but I want women to feel that they can relax, because until we feel relaxed in our system, it's all going to live in the head. So it's about noticing shifts as they happen. And once that trust is built, what did I just notice then? What just happened then? And speaking to what they're noticing, even in the session, creating and starting that process of I noticed something happening, getting that connection starting then, and then bringing in, if it feels resonant, bringing in the connection starts with breath.
So many ways I want my brain to be asking you. I feel like I want to ask you, in terms of the way that you talk about and have people become aware of potentially the archetypes, or even if you're not using that language, that the parts of us, do you relate to the approach of the internal family systems kind of thing? That's like, if we try and go in with this judgmental, fixing, finding, blaming, self-flagellation energy, IFS would tell us that our whole system is going to protect the wounded parts of us. And so it sounds like one of the ways that you're helping people sense safety is to go slow enough and feeling enough that the walls don't, rush up in a protective mechanism. I'm curious, how would you describe, like, if you're working with someone who has, just say they're saying to you, I always end up, let's use one of the examples that you use, like, my boss has said something to me and I notice that the little girl that's like, oh, shrink down, keep safe, don't stand up for yourself, or whatever it is. If someone gives you that example, can you talk to us about how you can help people not go down the irresistible, like I always think of mindset tracks, like, well-wired behavioral patterns that have been there for decades and decades. I always feel like they're like the bright yellow, like curly slides at McDonald's. They're like, they look so fun, except they're not, in my opinion. And they're almost irresistible. So it's like that default thing. We've done it so often, it's just what we do. How do you help people to interrupt and give space for the noticing? And then eventually, over time, the choosing of a different way. And the reason I'm asking specifically is I imagine that in a session, you know, you're building trust with your client and you're allowing those parts to feel safe and soothed and calm. But then we go out in the real world and something happens that has always triggered that part. So how do you help people interrupt that pattern? Like, give the space.
Yeah. So one of the first steps is finding out, how do you want to be in that situation? So somewhere along the line, just create a vision of how do you want to be? Otherwise, I'm imposing my vision of, oh, I'd love to see you like this. How would you like to see yourself?
That's such a powerful question, isn't it?
Yeah, getting curious about what vision do you have for yourself in this situation. Now, that might come up early, that might come up late.
Yeah.
But for me, it's always being very switched on to my assumptions.
Yes, absolutely. Because we can't decide for other people.
No. So I will say, this is what I'm feeling or thinking or what's coming up for me, but I want to give space for you to tell me how you see yourself. And then that gives both of us being able to, as you know, within coaching, a lot of this is us as the client being able to hear ourselves bring to life the past or the present or the feelings. There they are. We can now, they've been spoken into this space. I can hear myself as the client saying them, and I can converse with them now. There's more for me to work with rather than just existing in my own head with this.
Yeah, beautiful.
So the first one is absolutely, is awareness. And so building awareness for me is, as it is for a lot of coaches, this is where the work really starts. It's just noticing. And once again, this is the big dose of compassionate curiosity. We're just noticing. We're not judging. And if I hear a client say, oh, I slipped back, or we're not talking, one of my favorite teachers calls it catching a case of being human. So what? You'll catch a case of being human. That's right. Yeah. Automatic conditioning will have us react in moments of stress that we do not have control over. This is what we know about our nervous system and the stress response. And I will tell you all about it as my client. If this feels helpful to your understanding of why you didn't mess up, even though we've been working for 6 months around this issue. It's very real. And this is the context for why it happened. So awareness, and then this big dose of compassionate curiosity, and then coming in over time with strategies. So Kylie, for me, I'm a big believer in that there is I'm sure this is shared with many, that no one size fits all. Some of us are very robust and feel our growth very, very much in our bodies, and are like quick growing flowers that sort of bloom into this work with a little bit of watering and a little bit of fertilizer, and whoosh, we're there, and we're sort of curious, and we're bold, and we've got something of courage internally that we tap into, and we step into that space. Others of us feel very delicate and need a lot of reassurance that it is normal, that this will take time, and that the vision that you hold of yourself and where you're at now, there's a space there that we're going to be looking at and playing with and seeing where we can meet the vision that you have and where you're at now, and what's the little next step that's just going to bring us a little bit closer to you feeling empowered or confident or languaged up, because a lot of the work around, especially in when it is our nervous system, when it is a stress response, is having some level of preparation, very tangible, very, take it out of the world of concepts and ground it in the practical
right here.
Right here. When we can, let's prepare for this. When we can't, let's see what we can put in place so that you feel that you are in control.
And
What's your path?
resourced. Yeah, more resource than
Correct.
what we perhaps were. Well, undoubtedly, more resource than what we were when we first began being conditioned into
Correct.
roles like that. I'm curious, in your own journey, so you've been, like you said, 12 years ago, you started this, began the journey of the coaching that you're doing and the intuitive eating. What has shifted yourself? Like how has the lens of your life and the way that you see yourself, how has that shifted internally with the awareness and the work that you've undoubtedly done as you are developing and evolving as a coach, but also personally, and not settling for the status quo, like leaving a marriage and doing, the things that you first started talking about? What can you paint the picture of possibility for people who are listening and going, I get this in theory, but I just don't understand how to shift from being this really uncomfortable with any thought about not being the good girl to this wild and free, I'm going to use the name of the podcast, like, that to me is like, that's the type of freedom that I'm after as well. It's like, I don't want to be playing out any roles. I just want to be fully authentically myself. And having the awareness that when I'm not, that will help me to potentially make space to make different choices over time.
Oh, that's a great and big question, because when I reflect back,
making it easy for you, am I? Sorry.
I love it because when I reflect back on the last 12 years, that evolution of really opening up how I bring myself fully to clients and how I welcome, I don't do much. I don't do any work around intuitive eating anymore. It is all about, it can come up. I've got books, I've got resources, and it's a conversation I'm happy to have. But this is now such a big picture of everything is welcome. Everything is welcome. It has been a lot of work, Kylie. It's just been a lot of me being very awake in my own life, and then not awake, and just falling back into my own conditioning and my own fears. And having good people around me. I'm, even going through the process of leaving my partner, leaving my husband, and the commitment I had because of that type we were talking about earlier, the spirit type that you and I identified with. I was so committed to my own growth after leaving that marriage. I went in and I did womb work and connecting with the feminine and, lots of woman type work, lots of embodied feminine. Who is this, creature embodies this
vessel
feminine identifying space here that's, that defined by this skin and this heart, but also this radiating, energetic body. And I'd not done that work. It hadn't been safe. I hadn't felt connected, that kind of work. And I wanted to go back out into the world of meeting people intimately, a different version than where I was coming out of the marriage. So I gave myself a couple of years of just going to the wall with immersing myself in who am I and this, so that when this showed up again, putting herself out there in front of men for me, it was a more integrated self, a more clearer self of who I am, and more importantly, what I have to offer. So who am I and what I have to offer. And that was a massive, big growth journey for me, because when I did go out into the arena, it's, as we know, the theory is great, as we were talking about before. In the books and the courses and the podcasts is great, but it's not until we're in the arena and actually putting ourselves in front of people that I found a whole other level of an understanding of myself and my work, people pleasing, and where do my needs fit, so a couple of years of that process and lots of journaling, lots of work with coaches and counselors, and back to the journaling, a lot of intention setting around, letting go of people and processing. I'm a deeply feeling person. I connect, connection is one of my highest values. whether you're a friend, a family member, or a lover, I want to connect on a very intimate,
deep level. Yeah.
deep
Yeah.
level.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of journaling until I got to the point where I met the person who I ended up marrying, and now is one of the people who provides a level of accountability and support that I never imagined otherwise.
Mm.
So it was believing that I was worth investing in.
Yes.
That I had a vision for myself that I wasn't quite sure what it was, where my life was going, because leaving my marriage is the scariest thing I've ever done. I have nothing to compare it to fear-based wise. Deconstructing a whole life, I have nothing to compare it to, you know, as yet. Anything else, that was incredibly scary for me to do that. And to come out the other side and decide I've got a vision for myself and I believe in my worth and I want this. I want an intimate partner where I feel supported, loved, held accountable, an equal, sometimes ahead of me, sometimes behind me, who has very similar visions and values around growth. Another value for mine is growth.
Growth, yeah.
So, and found that person. Everybody's journey to your version of that is so different.
Yeah.
We are so unique. And so I honor my story and I put my story aside.
Yeah.
Because where the rebel spoke to me and said, no more dieting, or not this husband anymore, or, you know, whatever, it will speak differently to each woman, and it will be like I was saying earlier, an energy for wanting something different and more in alignment with the self that feels ready.
Yes.
To be out into the world as her true self, even if we're not yet sure what that even means. Words not there, but it's we have no idea what it's. That's right.
Yeah. As you're talking, I feel like we've used the word conditioning so much, and really in the simplest form, the way that I understand conditioning at least is learning to be a particular way to feel safe and okay and loved, approved, etc. And by definition, that can disconnect us from our own internal values, purpose, desires, etc. And as you're talking, what it feels like to me is pattern interrupting the conditioning and committing. That's the word that you were using, which is such a strong word. It's like, I'm committing to following the desire. I have no idea where it's leading me, and it's just made me do something really bloody scary, but I still have a sense of faith that it's going somewhere that I need to go. And so courageous to do that, because, you know, a lot of us have these conversations with ourselves and then like, I don't know, you know, the uncertainty kicks in. But it sounds to me like by working on the conditioning, and I hate that term working on because it makes it sound, you know, like I hate that kind of coachy speak, but I'll use it for a second. Working on the conditioning means that you have come to a point where you are much more authentically yourself than what you could have been with the conditioning in place. And so that has given you an opportunity to find the parts of you that match the partner that you've got, which I feel like on the surface, the people pleasing is all about making sure other people get what they want. But actually what we're doing is not allowing people to see us because we are acting a role, not being seen for ourselves. And so we're actually doing exactly the opposite of what we think we're doing. Well, at least that's kind of my awareness that's kind of dropped in over the last couple of years. It's like saying yes from a sense of obligation, or saying yes because that's what you've always done. It's always been your responsibility, blah, 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 is just as disrespectful to the other person as it is to myself. And that is a new level of understanding for me.
Nice.
Yeah. I know. When you are feeling into, because when you were describing the different archetypes, when you were describing the little girl, like, and it kind of feels like, well, there's kind of the two different parts of it, like the opting out of adulting, hoping someone else will come and fix it, but also that keeping yourself safe from being the full expression. What do you feel like, because my experience in childhood was being parentified from very young. And so when you're talking about the little girl, I'm like, I literally have no connection at all to the part of what you were describing of the like hoping that an adult will come and sort it out, because have been always the adult. Like I am the one that deals with all the shit. So do you have any other awareness for those of us that feel like that? It's like, but I'm always the one that does the thing. So do you think that means that that part of us is still there, but it's just not expressed? Or, and I know you're saying don't go looking for these parts because it's just one way of looking at ourselves. I'm just interested what your thoughts are.
So can I throw back a question to you?
Of course you can.
A little personal and
go for it. Okay. I've literally talked about everything on this podcast.
So what happens when that part in you, which has always been overly responsible, that's my words, not yours.
Yep. No, also mine. Yes. Okay. Continue. Yep.
So if we think about that as a continuum, and you've been up this far end of the continuum, holding that energy, holding the tension of that, oof, I feel it in my body as there's a heaviness to that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Have you ever had, and you don't need to answer yes just because we're talking publicly, but have you ever had an experience where you've swung completely to the other end of the continuum, dropped the bucket, did not a tanty, but, something that might look like, fuck this?
Yes, and what is coming to my mind, and it's interesting that we're having this conversation today because I've just been voice noting with a friend about this pattern. I get to I am at capacity for the over responsibility, and then what generally happens is my body goes, right, I'm going to create a really bad sickness or a really bad reason for you to have an excuse to opt out of the over responsibility. So that's where that shows up, definitely.
Yep.
Interesting.
So it may not be called little girl. So just play with me for a moment. Say if you had have said, every now and then I just say, fuck the lot of you. I get in my car and I drive, and actually people get worried about me. It doesn't, it's this feeling of I've just got to break free, literally. And I do something either impulsive or, unplanned, or that may not be little girl, but it also might be. There might be elements of
I get what you're
responsibility saying. Is too much.
Too much.
And now I need to
check out.
Act out something that feels, and I don't have a middle ground. Kylie, those who identify with over-functioning, don't have a middle ground for being able to moderate.
Oh, God, no. It's all or nothing.
Yeah. So I flip right to the other side.
Yep.
Because we're like elastic bands. When we stretch out too far, at some point we're going to come back.
Yep. And this is a perfect example of when, like what we were talking about, the judgment versus the compassionate curiosity, because what I have always made that mean is I'm inconsistent. I'm not able to hold responsibility. I do rebellious, impulsive things. And it's always been with the lens of like, oh, if I could just stop doing that, then I would blah, 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 blah. And now I'm looking at it going, this is just a protective mechanism because I've been overly responsible. And also that goes further because, again, it's another pattern where people just don't get to see you because you're the over responsibility part of me doesn't allow me to be silly or have fun or have any other needs but taking care of all of the shit that needs to be taken care of. And so it's just as masking of my authentic self as any other pattern that we've talked about today.
Correct.
So yeah.
It's really interesting actually you raise about the rebelliousness. I every now and then I run a People Pleasers Anonymous workshop. So we get to unpack people pleasing in a very sacred, slow, respectful way where we hold it as not a fault. or something to criticize or judge ourselves for, we reframe it, we look at it in all its different ways. And there's actually one theory that says rebelliousness is another form of people pleasing. So, you know, I wear brightly colored hair. Okay, why? Because I want people to, you know, or whatever it is. I'm just using that one example.
Yeah.
There's something I do that really shows the world, gives a big middle finger to the world. And this theory says that it fits into the people-pleasing mold because people-pleasing is about controlling our
perception. Yes.
That's right. Controlling the uncontrollable, which is other people. One of the ways we do that is by keeping people at a distance. So this theory, this model is not going to fit everybody. So please just go very gently when you think about, you know, the reason why you got tattoos or did something with your hair or had something that you wanted to be very self-expressive about, which you and I would say, wonderful, do it, great. And when we get into the conversations in People Pleasers Anonymous, it's not for me to define any of this. It's for us to be curious within ourselves, to sit back and think, oh, where did that come from? You know,
what's the truth of this?
That's right. What am I masking? Like you were saying, what or who am I trying to control? What is this keeping me safe from? And with a lot of compassionate curiosity.
Yeah. Interesting. Very, very interesting. As you were talking when we very first chatted, and we will have to wrap up, even though I want to ask you 58 different things. When we were first talking and you said about the definition of a rebel just being challenging of the status quo, I am very, very passionate about the same type of justice and challenging of systems of oppression and everything that we've talked about lightly during this episode. However, what I've come to realize is that when I use the word rebel about myself, it's actually become a part of my identity that helps me to stay distracted from how I'm really feeling by fighting against something. And so I've had to really become aware of, when does this actually cost me my true self-expression? And so I do think it's all about, it is all about detecting your own truth, but also the intention behind the behavior is so, because it is very kind of easy to label things like, you know, oh, she's being rebellious, or she's doing this, or she's doing that. But it's like, what is the purpose behind it? Or what does it serve right now? And I have realized that that is just another version of protective mechanism. It's like, you know, if I'm fighting against something, it's almost like gives that, it gives anger that probably needs to be expressed somewhere else, somewhere to go, you know, so, but it's a distraction. It's,
wow, that is a beautiful insight. And thank you for showing us a very, seriously, because
that's just truth for me at the moment.
Yeah, but that's going at a level of, you know, because it'd be so easy to affirm you for that, you know, sending that anger out and having that feeling and being that cause and, you know, wanting to make a difference. And yet to go that level deeper and really identify, in this instance, where is that anger coming from? Is it misdirected? Is there something that I'm nothing to see here because it's all out there?
Exactly. That's what I back when I was coaching, which I don't do anymore, one of my favorite questions was, at what cost? And the amount of times that I've internally asked that question and gone, oh my goodness, okay, all right. So what I want to feel is wild and finally fucking free. And this is just another way that I've bound myself in a behavior that costs me wild and finally fucking free. And that has become my filter of, like, I guess, the intention, but also protective mechanism. So I think that the awareness, awareness gives us choice, as always. But yeah, it's just interesting. And I feel like having these types of conversations where, and I'm not saying everyone has to bare their soul on a podcast. I wouldn't say that at all, because this feels safe to me now, but it wouldn't have, you know, even 2 years ago. But I just feel like having actual, real conversations about behaviors and understanding ourselves with compassionate curiosity, not judgmental, you know. I really like compassionate curiosity because I used to use the language objective observer, but compassion, that feels even more loving and gentle.
My life
Love it.
every day, Kylie. And I think that's what, just on that last point of what you were reflecting was, and that's why midlife is the time to try on different versions of how we want to be in the world. We will often find that we will go through different iterations of, oh, this is where I'm at and this feels good now. The expression of this is what's coming through. And if we're in a safe place where we can feel that, you know, that do it, be that, until there's another level of awareness comes in and we maybe drop in, and if we have, once again, that compassionate curiosity to allow ourselves to evolve and grow through midlife, none of it will be a mistake.
Oh, what the perfect understanding and awareness to wrap us up on. None of it is a mistake, because that, like the goodness and the badness and the seeking the perfection and productivity and goodness, all of that stuff we've talked about. Exhausting, but also pulls us off track so often. But yeah, understanding that nothing's a mistake. One thing we have not spoken about, well, actually two things very quickly. I came across you through TEDx. Can you give us a little rundown? Because we don't have the link at the moment and won't when we're publishing, but I am going to go backwards and add the link. So can you talk about, because you're like, this is what feels most alive to me, right? So talk about your TEDx and then we'll tell people where to find you and
Thank you. So, well, yes, at the end of last year, a woman that you and I both know, Julie Parker from Beautiful Youth Coaching Academy, and Joe Parker, who curate TEDx Cecil Street in Melbourne, put out a call for the second lot of, this was the second time they were running TEDx.
Yes.
And the theme was rebels and renegades. I burst into tears and I stomped my feet and I ran into my bedroom and cried, and I came out and I said to my husband, oh, he was like, what happened? And I said, it's rebels and renegades and I just want to hide. The little girl just reared her head and said, get the fuck out of here. This is
too much.
So I did my nervous system calming regulation. I did my practices and my, went through and then was able to be in that place of, this is the best and biggest opportunity I've probably had in my career to date. And so I gave my TEDx talk in March of this year, so a couple of months ago, on the power of midlife rebellion. And I am so excited to share it with midlife women. It's just the message in it. I presented it to a group that retreat a couple of weeks ago, and the message is, and I know will continue to resonate across. It's beyond me now. It is a message for all women in midlife and those who love them around what it is to hear the call of the rebel. So it goes to TED. It's in the process of being approved and published. And as soon as it's published, I'll be sharing that far and wide. And I appreciate everyone who spends the 12 or 13 minutes investing their time in listening to it and sharing it with those who they think would get value from listening to it.
So good. I'm interested, how did the little girl part of you feel as you stepped off the stage?
That was her one and only appearance, was when I saw the title. I had such an all-body fear response. And for me, the issue is around hiding my greatness. That was the work I did several years ago, was greatness revealed. I had a literally mountaintop moment of greatness revealed, and got very clear on that little girl and how she was keeping me what she thought was safe. From then on, it was all queen energy.
Oh yeah.
All queen and rebel energy. And
love it.
It was, taking that stage felt like one of the biggest privileges to be able to share this message.
Yeah. You and your truth. I love it. Now we can find you online at midliferebel.com.au. Remember the AU for people that are overseas and not in Australia. You have been a deep delight. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for trying to tackle some very big questions that I probably could have broken down Thank you for the work that you do in the world. And I know that this conversation will ripple out and wake a lot of people up to things that they're meant to be awake to. So thank you.
Thank you, Kylie.
Thank you so much for tuning in, my friend. And if you enjoyed this ep, please share it with another midlife friend or take the opportunity to go and rate and review the show on your favorite listening platform. All of these things really help us to reach more women in midlife. Now, I don't know if you know, but I am both a storyteller who helps healers and helpers capture and communicate their work through the magic of storytelling. And I'm a midlife self-care coach who is super passionate about helping other women reframe perimenopause and midlife as a powerful and purposeful time of transformation. To find out more about me and my work, you can head to Instagram at Kylie Patchett or my website kpcreative.com.au, and that is kpkreative.com.au, and you will find all of those links in the show notes. Have a spectacular day, and may you be setting yourself